none other than the house of God, the very gate of heaven. But I also connected it to Revelation 4. I was dealing with gates, doors, and veils in the spirit realm. And I went back to my hotel room and went to sleep. And the next morning, the meetings continued. I wasn't speaking, but someone else was. And the Lord told me, stay in my room and pray. So I did. And when I do that, I normally put the pillows against the headboard and, have my Bible there, and I pray and study, read, whatever. And I was wide awake. About 10 o'clock in the morning, my eyes had been closed while I was praying, and when I opened my eyes, and this is the truth, you can accept this or not, if it happened. When I opened my eyes, there was a man standing at the foot of my bed. And ethereal form, I guess the word would be astral projected. And obviously I was surprised, but I saw him so clearly. I saw his appearance. He stood there. I looked at him for a few seconds. He was very thin, black hair. I could describe his tattoos. And as he started to reach his hand towards me, obviously, I rebuked him in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and by the power of the shed blood. Instantly, he drew back and looked at me for a moment, and he turned into a raven right in front of my eyes and flew out of the ring. Now, perhaps there are some communities of the church that might have a hard time with that, but it happened. Most everyone that listens to these podcasts know me well enough to know I'm not going to make something up. And most of the people that watch these podcasts or listen to them are familiar with the spirit realm. But we have to start talking about this. Now, so what happened? He left immediately when I rebuked him. Instantly. There was no battle. There was no fighting back and forth. There was just this rebuking of this. It was a natural man. It was not a demon. It was a man. He was covered in these demonic tattoos. I could describe him. In fact, I did. And he left. He shape-shifted and flew out of the ring. The leader of the event picked me up for lunch, and I told him what happened. I described the man to him. I said, he's the head of a coven. I knew that. It was just imparted to me. He is the leader of this coven of witches and warlocks in this city, and this coven has been in Sheffield, England for 400 years. I knew that. All of that was just downloaded to me in the encounter. And I described him, and I told them, be watching. I told the leader of the event to have his security people and have his ushers be on the lookout. Here's what he looks like. He'll be dressed in black. His arms will be covered in tattoos. He's got long black hair. He's very thin. I described what he looked like. And he came that night. I was preaching again on the same subject. And they saw him. He came in, sat down, only sat there for a few minutes. When I started preaching, they said he jumped up and ran out. I only found out about it after the end of the service. I didn't happen to see him when he left. Now, you might say, well, what was that all about? Well, here's what I believe happened. I can't say with 100% certainty, but I don't know, maybe a year or so later, I received emails from people in Sheffield. And there was another man who had gone there to preach, and they actually sent me the audio. I really regret that I didn't keep the audio. I think I had it on another computer and eventually got away from that computer, and so the file was lost. Maybe if someone is listening to this podcast, they can resend it to me. But there was another man preaching. If I remember right, he was from England but was living in the States, somewhere in Texas, if I remember right. But he was actually, of UK heritage, but was living in the States, but had gone back and was in the middle of preaching. I listened to it myself. He's just preaching a sermon. I can't remember now the subject, but he stopped right in the middle of the sermon. He said, wait just a minute. Said something's going on here, and acknowledged that some kind of spiritual activity was going on. And he said, and he went on, he said, a portal has been opened here in the city. And it was open a year ago or whatever, and he named my name. He said, and when Paul King Davis was here, the Lord opened the door, a portal, and he giving them instructions. He said, yeah, I don't think you even realize the Lord opened the door here, and you need to man the door and do intercession, or words to that effect, tried to encourage them to activate and to utilize this open heaven that had been released and so forth. And so I was shocked. I didn't even know myself what all the Lord had done. I just knew that there was a confrontation between light and darkness, and that the leader of this demonic into this coven of witches and warlocks didn't like it. But the Lord had the victory. The Lord is the one that did it. I'm just kind of going along, doing my best just to obey the Lord, But that's the kind of thing that we're going to see in 2025. That's the kind of thing we're going to see in the next 12 months leading into the next several years. And there's a battle taking place over spiritual gates, doors, and veils, portals, doors.